Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Rebecca Fannin. Rebecca, I've come across her book, which is this one, Tech Titans of China, though you've actually written 3. So she's better than me. Rebecca is joining us from California. And we're going to talk about the Tech Titans book. But before we do that, Rebecca, tell us where we can find you.
Well, right now I'm just south of San Francisco, but online you can find me at silicondragonventures.com. That's silicondragonventures.com. And also on Twitter at Silicon Dragon, and my personal at Fannin. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook with Silicon Dragon. And of course, you can find the books on Amazon and at all fine book retailers.
You're on Amazon worldwide. Fantastic. Yeah. And your surname, because there's some people who watch the English isn't necessarily their first language, is spelled Fannin, just so that people know. And I'm just going to flash the book again, just so people can see the title. Now, so my partner found this. She must have found you somewhere. She's often doing this to me, where she's going, "Oh, you need to read this." And I read it, and it is fantastic. And it is stuffed through of facts about China and the way and business. And I read it over a weekend because I actually couldn't put it down, because it's like, wow, bloody hell, this is just amazing. And one of the things that I've always thought, that I've traveled a lot in the Far East, but what you always think of China as being the people that basically come here and copy us. And that's not the way it is anymore, is it?
No, it's definitely not.
And you bring that out in the book, don't you? The fact that they're actually now the innovators in certain areas.
Yes, they are. They've gone from copiers to innovators in about 15 years in the tech world.
And in terms of the tech, it covers a number of different areas. So, I'm back again. We started off with them copying the West, and then actually venture capital from the States went into China, and has actually supported the Chinese tech industry. That's right, isn't it?
Yes. This started around 2000, 2001, and it's definitely picked up speed from my first book, Silicon Dragon, which talked about basically the copiers of Yahoo, Google, Amazon, and you name it, were all copied in China. But that's a while ago now. Now, today, we're seeing innovations in mobile, in AI, in electric vehicles, in biotech, in e-commerce, and many other areas too. The Chinese have gotten ahead very quickly, and a lot of venture capitalists flooded the market, so that China is the second largest venture capital market in the world, next to the U.S. And China is also rapidly escalating in many other areas like patents and R&D development, and these very important indicators.
I mean, one of the things that amazed me about China, when you bring this out in the book, is the size of the country, and therefore what is success in terms of, so for you to have a platform, you will get tens of millions, or if not hundreds of millions of people on a platform, because the country is so big and there's so many people.
Yeah, this is true. When things take off in China, the numbers really add up quickly, because China has the biggest mobile population in the world, and the biggest internet population in the world, and the biggest population altogether, I think, next to India.
I was watching one of your interviews in preparation for this, and it reminded me, we do some work in Singapore. And one of the people there had been in China, and she was laughing because A, there was people still using money, B, there was people still using credit cards, and of course Singapore thinks it's the very advanced.
Yeah.
And she said, I do everything on my mobile. And I remember you said on this interview, oh yeah, they don't use email anymore on in China. And this interview went, so what do they do? It's and I think sometimes people don't realize how fast paced the change is taking place.
Oh, sure. Well, WeChat is it in China. You can't do business in China, communicate with anyone in China without getting on WeChat. It's the ubiquitous app. It's replaced email, although email never was that big. Text was bigger. Cash is gone in China. It's all mobile payments, Alipay, WeChat Pay, QR codes for payments, and it's just these things have gotten wider adoption in China more quickly than they have in the Western world.
And I think one of the things about WeChat, I did one of these interviews with somebody that had worked in China around WeChat, and they worked for Reuters. And they were telling me that how WeChat was this, and I mean, I have WeChat, but I have the English version, so it's not quite, it's not the detailed version.
Right.
But you know, the fact that you can build your own website in WeChat, and I can't remember the figures, but the Reuters WeChat website got more hits than Reuters website for the locality. And that's just amazing power of that as a social network and the way that people are living their lives on that platform.
Oh yeah, they are. I mean, it's used for audio, video, payments, shopping,
Taxi.
Getting a taxi, buying anything. There's these micro stores that are built in with inside of WeChat now today. But it's look, it's one of these apps that's just really taken off. Another one that is TikTok, short video app. Now, this is an example of a Chinese company that has actually gone global. And TikTok now is, okay, everyone seems to know TikTok, and they're doing these short video apps on TikTok now, particularly since we're all shut in, right? Some of these entertainment apps have really taken off. So TikTok has gone global. WeChat is international, although there's different versions outside of China than the one in China. But people outside of China are using WeChat. The drone company DJI, it's the world's leading drone maker. Huge market share. So definitely we're seeing these trends of the Chinese tech titans having influence globally. That was not the case when this all started in China 15, 20 years ago, that it was mostly an inside China story. But if you look at a company like Alibaba, it has huge influence internationally. And it's a Chinese tech startup.
And the figures from Singles Day, it's just amazing the amount of stuff that they shift.
Yes, yeah, it is. It is, yeah. And you have these superstars that have emerged from China too, like Jack Ma, who is a celebrity in China and is very well known in the Western world now today. He's really the first Chinese tech executive that's crossed borders like that.
And so one of the things that you talk about is the work attitude.
Oh yeah.
And you talk about 996.
Yeah, 996.
Explain to me what 996 is then.
996 is 9 a.m. to 9. It's 12-hour days.
Yeah.
6 days a week, but it's really more than that. It's 7. They're working 7 days a week.
Right.
When you're an entrepreneur, you just do that. And China's economy is fed today by a lot of entrepreneurial activity, and it's very fast, and it's very fluid, and it's unstoppable. When you go there, you just immediately feel the pace of it. the competition. Yeah, it's everything is in hyperspeed.
Because there's a big startup community in London, and my business partner and I were in San Francisco last year, and and you can feel the difference even in San Francisco, because of someone said to me that in San Francisco nothing is impossible. And I just got the feeling from reading your book that in China it was even more so than that sort of startup attitude that you have in San Francisco. You know, you go to a coffee bar and there's lots of people talking and you know, pitching micro scooters or batteries for micro scooters or something like that. There's this whole ecosystem of people buying and selling. But I just got the feeling from your book that in China it's bigger than that.
Yeah, and I have actually been in London in the whole startup district there around Shoreditch, and I've seen that develop too. So I mean, there's a lot of startup capitals in the world today, but I think that China reigns supreme as the fastest, most aggressive one of them all. And I've been to most of the startup capitals in the world. With Silicon Dragon news and events as a journalist and media entrepreneur. So I have some comparisons to make. I've been doing this for 10 years since with Silicon Dragon Ventures as its own media group for 10 years, traveling and doing events. So, and interviewing people in each one of these locales. So I really do think that China has few comparables in the world, and in the kinds of innovations that we're seeing today, the speed of it, the competition, and just the sheer culture of entrepreneurship in China, of getting ahead, wanting to get ahead, making money, going public, getting acquired. These things are really resonate in the entrepreneurial community, even more so than here in Silicon Valley, which people say Silicon Valley seems sleepy by comparison. You know, there are venture capitalists who I've interviewed that say, yeah, Silicon Valley is kind of sleepy compared to what they see in China. But,
go on.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so in terms of, one of the things you talk about in the book is the different particular areas. So you cover artificial intelligence, drones, electric vehicles, mobile commerce, all of these things that it's not just one thing that they're basically famous for, it's multiple things. So you talked about the drones. Elaborate on that a bit more for everybody.
Well, yeah, not only drones, but robotics and electric vehicles are coming on strong in China. Many of these areas have been green lighted by the Chinese government as areas that they want to develop as China is trying to become a real world tech power. And it is becoming that, which is why we're starting to see some friction between China and the rest of the world in some technology issues that are ongoing, like 5G. But I think the Made in China 2025, the Belt and Road Initiative, these are all government initiatives to help China get ahead and become dominant. And areas such as drones and robotics and electric vehicles are areas that are benefiting, and clean tech. These areas are all benefiting because of the government support and because of a lot of venture capital and entrepreneurship activity that's gone into these areas.
So you mentioned that the two things that they have in China is cheap manufacturing, or relatively cheap manufacturing, and they're tech driven, which is why they've been able to focus on things like drones.
Right. There's certain areas of China, for instance, in Shenzhen, is considered a hardware capital where you can get things made.
Right.
And I visited there and a couple of times, and more than a couple of times, but one of the recent visits was to see this supplier alley where all of these component parts are represented by various vendors who are selling these parts in huge area with one booth after another. So supplier alley, anything you want is there. And you can get it quickly. You can make a prototype quickly. You can get it to market, test it, get it to market more quickly than elsewhere. And look, we've even seen with the virus lately how many of these components and drugs are coming from China. So we do know, yes, China is the manufacturing capital of the world. It still is, but it's also becoming a tech center of the world as well.
Electric vehicles. You talk about how that if we look at in the West, we've got Tesla and we've got everybody else. But in fact, Tesla are now seeing the Chinese as probably the biggest competition.
Yeah, well, Tesla built a factory in Shanghai to tackle the Chinese market. That's how important it is to them. And I think that was a good move. There before then, their pricing was too high because of the tariffs that were slapped on the Tesla cars being imported. But if they're made in China and sold in China, they don't have to deal with that. Right. But they are up against several dozens of Chinese electric vehicle makers. And many of these have been formed by technologists, not car makers like have in Detroit in the US, but technologists who understand about the connected car and how important these new technologies are to driving. It's not just driving, but it's driving connected, it's driving autonomously, self-driving. So technology has become much more a part of the whole automaking business, and China is leapfrogging in that area. They're also leapfrogging because when I first started going to China, it was mostly bicycles, and then became some private cars, and then it became everyone had a private car. But well, not everybody, but a good percentage. But they skipped right over the whole era of the gas-powered engine. You know, in a way, they skipped over it, like they've skipped over many other things that were common in the West, like a laptop computer. China is straight to mobile. China can go straight to electric vehicles more readily than the U.S. or the Western world, because they didn't have a widespread adoption of gas-powered cars so they can more readily go to the newest thing because they were behind before, and now they have this opportunity to leapfrog.
It's like in the UK we have a big telephone network of wires, which and so does America, and China can basically just miss all that out and go straight to mobile.
Definitely.
So can you draw some comparisons between so people can get an understanding of the names of these companies? So, the Googles and the Facebooks, and we mentioned WeChat, but explain to people the differences between the products that you would, or the systems and the platforms you would use in the West, as in what you would do in China.
Right. So there in China, there's what's called the bot, and that's Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. And in the Western world, we have the FANGs: Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. And so each one of these has an equivalent. Alibaba is considered the Amazon of China. Baidu is considered the Google of China. Tencent is considered the Netflix Plus of China. Tencent has all of these bot companies have multiple services within their platform. They're not just Google is not just a search company anymore. It's gone deep into AI and autonomous driving. Alibaba was originally an e-commerce company, but now they've gone deep into mobile commerce, e-commerce, e-retailing, robotics, mobile payments. Tencent was originally a social messaging company, but it's also gone into, and gaming, and it's also gone into mobile payments today and AI. So they're these companies are giants in their fields, and they have widespread networks of many sectors within the one company. But there's a whole other group of companies that I write about in the book that are in different spaces, like Xiaomi, the smartphone maker. It's considered kind of the Apple iPhone of China. But this Xiaomi has a number of apps that are baked into its smartphone. It's also cheap and, well, inexpensive. It's the #1 smartphone in India. And it's very well known internationally outside of the U.S. And Xiaomi, there's been a real pushback in the U.S. against Chinese brands, particularly
Yes.
lately. Yeah, but Xiaomi, and look, there's so many comparables like this, and it's interesting to see how the Chinese companies have actually become more innovative in gobbling up new spaces than I think their Western counterparts have. Now, in the AI space, you have a number of AI companies in China that have received enormous amount of venture capital, and we're seeing those ramp up rapidly. And I think in China, you're seeing deployment of AI more rapidly and throughout the country for areas like surveillance, for monitoring people if they jaywalk on a sidewalk, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, there was a debate when I was in Singapore about one of the debates that we haven't yet had in the West, I think, around privacy, which is that I was told that in WeChat there's AI now because on WeChat it knows where you are and what you're doing and the friends that you're connected to and what you're doing with the friends. It will actually suggest to you on Friday night. Obviously, this is pre-COVID-19, but on Friday night, why don't you meet at this place with these people?
Right.
So it's and that actually, as an AI, that isn't particularly difficult to do. I mean, my iPhone tells me what alarms I should be setting because it's trying to predict what I want to do. But if I tell that people in the West, they go, "Oh my God, data privacy," whereas the people in China went, "Oh yeah, why wouldn't we want that?"
Right. Yeah, there's a different attitude toward privacy issues in China.
And they're saying that in China, there was. This helps me. This means I can think about other things, because there's always this thing that if you're, why would you, there's loads of, what you do is you create habits because then you can concentrate on doing other things. And what the AI is doing is basically taking away the fact that you need to think about you're going to get together with people and book the table at the restaurant, and actually allow the AI to do that, and then you can focus on other things. But obviously in the West, we still see that as a problem from a data privacy perspective.
That's true.
It's something that we need to, something that we'll, I don't think we'll figure it out this year, but I think we've got other bigger things.
Well, with this contact tracing with the coronavirus, now Apple and Google are developing an app that lets you know if you've had any contact next to someone who might have had it. So it's coming in the West now too, that look, there's a need for it right now.
Yes. And there's a whole debate. I'm connected to all kinds of interesting people on Facebook because they've got a social media background, but they also have different belief systems, which is kind of interesting. I'm connected to a lot of people in the US, and there's an interesting debate that's going on around that, which I just sit back and watch because it's interesting for me anyway. But there has been some issues in terms of working in China, and in terms of there are risks. For example, Uber in China. Tell people about that.
Well, Uber went in and wanted to dominate the market in China, but they got trounced by the local competitor, Didi, in the same business. Uber sold out to Didi. They sold their business to Didi, the Chinese company. They basically gave up. But they got some stock in the new company, so they say that it's a win, but actually it's not. So look, they went at it. They spent a lot of money developing the market, and Travis was over there. The CEO was over there many, many times to China. But there were endless regulations to get into new markets. They were up against that. They were up against a very fast-moving Chinese competitor who was just beat them. This has been a common story of Western companies in China not being able to really take hold in the market. Amazon basically failed in China. eBay failed.
And you talk in the book about what you should do and what you shouldn't do, or what Western companies need to do, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, which is push the decision making down to the country level, rather than coming along and saying this is the way it's going to be.
That's right. That's been a common mistake made by the Western companies going in, is that they don't hire locally. They don't allow the local manager to make decisions without having to go to the headquarters back in Silicon Valley or wherever. And that has slowed them down and caused them to lose the race.
And you also talk about Starbucks, about the fact that Starbucks is a success. But there's also a company that's already started up that where you can order a coffee and have it delivered to you.
Yeah, that's true. Luckin Coffee, unfortunately, has gotten into trouble recently with alleged fraud, and it went public last year in New York, and now the trading has been suspended. And we'll see. There's been allegations that Luckin Coffee basically elevated their numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it was interesting because I saw the Starbucks and Luckin Coffee in China, and I visited the Starbucks biggest store in the world, which is in Shanghai, right in central Shanghai. And it's a huge roastery where they actually roast the beans there, and you can sample all the coffees. They even have tea there. They have all kinds of food. They have service to your table. You could stay there all day if you want. It's huge. But they were up against this fast charging startup, Luckin Coffee, which perfected the mobile app delivery, fast takeaway coffee, ordered and delivered, on your mobile app. And so then Starbucks copied that, and they partnered with a Chinese company, Alibaba, to do that. So there's a lot of interesting stories of how American companies have used different tactics to get past the Chinese competitors. But now I think Starbucks has got a clear road ahead for the time being, now that these fraud allegations against Luckin Coffee have been made.
And so Rebecca, the last question, how do you see the future? I mean, we're now in a COVID-19 world. And where do you see things going? Are things going to slow down, or do you think things are going to pick up, or how do you see it playing out?
I think things are going to pick up. I think we're in a real innovative era. We're seeing a lot of new ideas coming forth. I think this has unleashed creativity and has disrupted some sectors already. Where life is not going to be the same after this virus is over. It's going to impact the way that we live and work for a long time. And there'll be new ideas that come out of it. For instance, Zoom has really taken off.
Yeah. And
the idea of not having to go into work every day. Well, this was nothing new to me anyhow, because I'm a writer and a media entrepreneur and independent, not having to go into a corporate office anyhow. But for many people, this was kind of new. Oh my God. I'm not going to commute every day into an office. And so these are things that will change, I think, the way that we fly, the way that we eat, the way that we have fun. Yeah, these areas are all being disrupted, and this huge innovations happening. And we're at the beginning of that, really.
I agree. I think we're in, obviously that it's pretty horrible that the disease and the impact on people, but the saying, what's the saying about, is adversity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's what we're going to see is a massive shift.
Oh, yeah. And I'm seeing a number of venture capital firms who have raised new funds recently because they're going to go after the opportunity.
Right.
Now is a good time to invest.
Yeah.
The startups are getting going, and some that need new financing are at lower valuations than they were before. And so these venture capital firms are raising new funds, and that's going to also trigger more innovation too.
Yeah. Yeah. Rebecca, it's been really interesting to meet you and talk about the book. Both of us really enjoyed it, and so I'm just going to share it again because and it is available on Amazon worldwide. You need to keep your sales up. Remind people where they can get hold of you, Rebecca.
Sure. SiliconDragonVentures.com. We have a mobile app and we have a website. We also have a weekly newsletter, Silicon Dragon News. And you can reach us by email at news@silicondragonventures.com.
Fantastic. It's been great meeting with you and talking about you. It's an amazing it's an amazing subject, and something that, even though China's PR department hasn't been doing very well over the last couple of months, it's not going to stop them.
No, this is true. I think they're up against some big headwinds, like people calling this virus the Chinese virus. That's a big headwind.
It is. I don't think it's going to necessarily. Well, it won't stop the innovation, and it won't stop the fast pace. I think some things are going to happen. I'm already reading about. I'm part of a procurement social network, and they're already talking about moving manufacturing to Mexico. And I think some of that will happen, but that doesn't stop the innovation, does it?
No, and it's not so easy to move a supply chain anyhow.
No.
It's years and years, and you may not get the same kind of components in another market that you would have had in China, and at not the same price either.
Yeah. Rebecca, it's been great talking to you. Have a wonderful day there in California, and stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I hope to see you in Silicon Valley or in London.
I'll look you up whenever this is over and we can actually meet face to face. We will meet up, I can assure you.
Okay, actually, my book is published in London by Hachette.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a UK publisher. Well, it's a globally available book, but my publisher's in the UK.
In London? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
mine is in London. My publisher's in London as well. But I would expect that. But
yeah, well, we went with the Boston imprint of Hachette, but it's basically my royalties are coming from London.
All right. Okay. Good.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for today.
Bye. Bye. Bye.